Good Saturday morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, it seems that everything has changed in some way because of COVID-19. The one thing that you may not have thought about is our court system, making sure that people have a fair trial and that justice is served. It's independent now on many of you doing your civic duty. The 13th Circuit Court of Alabama is resuming jury trials after being shut down due to the coronavirus pandemic. Court officials say that resuming the jury trials was imperative. Since court was essentially closed on March 15th of this year, some 4,000 felony criminal cases have been filed. Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich says the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a tremendous backlog. Now, even with jury trials starting again, DA Rich says that instead of 6 to 9 months to prosecute a case, some court cases could take 2 to 3 years to complete. Mobile County leaders and the Circuit Court have made some major changes to make sure that jury trials can begin again as safely as possible. Now, as we continue to fight the spread of COVID-19, there are a lot of things to consider. Social distancing, disinfecting the courtrooms and visitor areas, and questioning potential jurors before they even show up for jury duty. Now, some of the changes include jury selection, the location and how panels are put together, and then more changes for the actual trial, including where the jury sits and deliberates, and even where those who want to watch a trial will sit as well. In fact, you can expect jury trials to actually take up 2 separate rooms now to allow for social distancing, and masks are required for everyone in the courthouse. Fox 10 News investigative reporter Brendan Kirby explains what court officials are doing to limit the risk of COVID-19.
In Mobile County, jurors will gather not at Government Plaza, but at the Mobile Civic Center Theater, where they can spread out more. Once picked for a trial, jurors will not sit in a crowded jury box. Instead, they will sit spread out in the gallery where the public usually sits. Each will have an assigned number marking his or her spot in the courtroom, and they'll deliberate in the same courtroom instead of a small conference room. The number of trials will be lower too, in an effort to limit the volume of people inside a building that often is overflowing during a typical trial week. Mobile County Presiding Circuit Judge Michael Youngpeter says judges rejected the idea of expanding the number of alternate jurors.
It's really a double-edged sword. I mean, the more people you bring in, the more likelihood, the harder it is to socially distance everybody. And the reality of it is, if someone gets sick, it's going to blow the trial up. I mean, there's no way we're going to say, oh, well, hopefully no one else got it. It's likely.
Youngpeter says typically one person answers the call for every 2 summonses that go out. To compensate, he says, the court system will be calling more people to jury duty. Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich says she worries it will be harder to strike juries. She noted that nearly 3,700 people have been charged with felonies since jury trials shut down in March because of the pandemic.
Criminal defendants don't want to plead guilty. They don't want to admit their guilt unless there's 12 members of a jury that are about to walk in and determine their guilt or innocence. And so if we don't have jury members to come down, community members to come down and serve on jury duty, then there's no pressure for the criminal defendants to do the right thing.
Now, Mobile County officials say that it will take about several months, if not more, to catch up on that backlog. Now, in Baldwin County, court officials are taking similar steps to prevent close contact among jurors. But unlike Mobile County, presiding circuit judge J. Clark Stankowski says that they don't have too much of a backlog to contend with. And our guest this morning, Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich. Ms. Rich has served as the Mobile County District Attorney since she was elected to that office 10 years ago. Ms. Rich, by the way, is the first woman to serve in the office. Well, what to expect if summoned to be on a jury? Perspectives continues after this quick break. Our guest this morning, District Attorney Ashley Rich, and we thank DA Rich for joining us this morning to talk about the court system and changes due to COVID-19. And DA Rich, give us an idea before we get into some of the good things that are happening right now for you. Let's talk about what happened with COVID-19 and all the major changes that took place in our judicial system.
Well, Eric, we consider the beginning of COVID-19 to be around the 15th of March, and that's when our public schools recessed and our employees had to go home and be with their kids. And so since March 15th, during COVID, we have charged over 4,000 felony crimes, felony criminal cases since March 15th. So those cases have just been sitting. And now that the Supreme Court has allowed us to go back into having jury trials and conducting court on a limited basis, finally, those cases are moving now somewhat, but there's a tremendous backlog in the number of cases that we have pending right now.
And that's what I was curious about, because due to the amount of cases, you normally do have a backlog. And how many now would you say are in that backlog? And do you have any idea how long it may take to process those?
Well, you know, prior to COVID, it took between 18 and 24 months for a case to go from start to finish, and that's all the way through a jury trial and completion and hopefully getting justice for the victims. But now after COVID, I'm anticipating that that will be somewhere between 2 and 3 years based on the current numbers that we have of the backlog cases.
Now, funding, of course, was one of the issues that you were having to fight with state and county officials to make sure you had the proper funding for your office. Will funding be increased so you can maybe move faster in the ones that's possible, or what are you looking at right now?
Unfortunately, I wish that funding would be a solution, but I'm very fortunate that we did resolve all of the issues with funding in my office. But we only have 8 circuit court judges and 4 district court judges, and so the only way we could significantly and expeditiously reduce that backlog is if we got more judges, and I don't think there's any plan to have any additional judges here in the 13th Judicial Circuit. So we're just going to have to work with what we have and just do the best we can with the number of judges that we have. And so I wish I could say I could hire more prosecutors and we could have more judges to handle that backlog, but unfortunately that's just not feasible.
When you look at the court system, what was the main concern as it was related to COVID-19 and the proximity of different people within that court environment?
Well, as most of your viewers have seen on TV, we have what's called a jury box, and that jury box, you have 12 people sitting arm in arm right next to each other. And of course, with the social distancing guidelines that are in place, we no longer have what's called a jury box anymore in the courtroom. Those jury members that would normally sit arm in arm in that jury box are now sitting in the audience section of the courtroom, so that they can be sitting 6 feet apart from one another, and they are also wearing masks according to the governor's mask mandate. And so those precautions have been put in place so that we don't have 12 jury members sitting arm in arm next to each other during the duration of the trial. In addition to that, what happens with deliberations is the jury would then retire into a jury deliberation room, which is very much like a very small conference room, where they sit around the conference table and they review all of the evidence to make their decision of guilty or not guilty of the crime charged. We will no longer have a jury deliberation room. They will now do their deliberations in the courtroom itself. The courtroom will be closed to everyone except the jury, so that they can maintain those social distancing requirements and they can deliberate in a very large open courtroom.
So we're talking major changes. I can only picture that as you were describing it, because that's what a difference from what we've been accustomed to. You actually got a chance to get started last week, resuming having jury trials. How would you describe, how did things go with what point you are at this particular case?
I'm very, very appreciative of the public for heeding the call to come down and serve on jury duty this first week, which started September 14th. Ironically, we had a hurricane in the middle of it, but during that first day, that Monday, that we convened the jury venire, which is the hundreds of people that were called down to serve on jury duty, we had a significant number of members of the community that were able to come down and perform their civic duty and serve on jury duty. And so I am so incredibly grateful that we were able to pick actually two juries to handle two trials last Monday. Unfortunately, things were shut down on Tuesday due to the hurricane, but one of those jury trials is going on as we speak down at the courthouse. So again, I just would like to appeal to the community to please, when you get your jury summons, please take it very seriously. Please understand we have COVID-19 regulations in place, and we're making it safe for you to come down and serve on a jury and perform your civic duty of being a juror in jury service.
We talked about the mask as well as the social distancing. What about the sanitation aspect of what's being provided by the court to address that area of the COVID-19 protocol?
Absolutely, Eric. The county commission, at the very beginning, our office never closed because we are an essential business, and we had to continue to give warrants to law enforcement officers when they came in. The way it works is law enforcement officers come to our office and we screen the cases to make sure the law enforcement officer has probable cause to arrest the defendant. And so we never closed our doors at all during COVID at the DA's office. And so we worked from the beginning with the county commission, and they provided sanitation machines that would come in after we closed and sanitize the areas of our office that we were open to the law enforcement officers and to other people that would come down to get warrants. And so that's continued in the courtrooms, Eric. So every time we have any type of court proceeding in a courtroom, the county then comes in that night with that sanitizing machine that can sanitize large rooms at a time and re-sanitizes the courtrooms. So every night that will happen during a jury trial and anytime we have court in a courtroom.
Give us an idea of what you say to the potential jurors when they come in reference to COVID-19 protocols as well as restrictions.
You know, the jurors have to fill out a questionnaire when they receive their summons in the mail. They have to go online and fill out a questionnaire that they're asked, you know, do you have COVID, or do you have a family member that has COVID, or have you been exposed to COVID? And so those questions are asked on the forefront. That has nothing to do with my office, but we're glad that we have those questions that we can refer to in determining whether someone would be suitable or not for jury service.
Our conversation with District Attorney Ashley Rich. We're going to take a quick break here on Perspectives, and when we come back, we'll find out more about the current procedures as well as what we expect in the future as we try to make up a tremendous backlog. Perspectives continues in just a moment. Our conversation this morning with District Attorney Ashley Rich, as well as finding out about the COVID-19 protocols and how it affects the Mobile County courts. DA Rich, of course, we've been talking about a lot of the things that you've been putting into place to be able to resume jury trials. I guess one of the other questions when we talk about once they arrive for jury selection, how does that work, and as well as within the COVID-19 protocols?
Eric, it's real important. You know, we've talked about the jury is now not in the jury box per se. The jury is in the audience of the actual courtroom. And so the question becomes, where does the attendees, the people that want to come and watch the trial, the victim's family members or the victims themselves or the defendant's family members? Because, you know, every criminal trial by law and Constitution is required to be an open to the public trial, you know, media as well. And so what we've done is we are now streaming that trial into a vacant room in the courthouse where those participants can go and watch the trial live on a large screen TVs and hear everything that's going on in the trial to satisfy the requirements that the trial be open to the public. So we have those measures in place as well, and of course social distancing is being enforced in that separate room to view the trial trial with mask requirements as well. So it's important that the public understands that these trials are still open to the public, and that the victims or the victims' families are allowed to come. They just won't be in the actual courtroom itself, but they will be allowed to watch live the trial as it's being held.
And I would assume, is the media also put into that room, or
yes,
how they
the media is put into that room. Where right now we have some lawyers that are watching the proceedings and learning some things with regard to the proceedings as well. So anyone that would normally be allowed in a courtroom to view the proceedings is allowed in that separate room.
And getting back to the other question, when the potential jurors come, which is a larger group of people than the 12 or so that are selected, how does that work, and where do you hold that initial jury selection?
Thank you for asking that question, Eric, because that's also very important. If you have served, and some of our jurors that come down, they get called 2 and 3 times for jury service. It's really interesting. People ask me all the time, well, Ms. Rich, I'd like to serve on jury duty. How can I volunteer? Well, unfortunately, we can't volunteer. It has to be a purely random process, and it's picked by a computer based on a driver's license number. But when the jurors get their summons to come down, instead of coming to Government Plaza now, they actually go to the Civic Center Theater, and they are assembled in the Civic Center Theater because it's a much larger area, and we can practice 6-foot social distancing there when the numbers are gathered before we put them in panels and actually assign them to a particular criminal trial.
Now, I'm sure folks are having a lot of questions these days about what they should do in their particular situation. If you have a case pending, what should you do with these new protocols in place?
If you're a defendant, you mean, and have a case pending?
Sure, sure.
If it's a defendant, they would need to communicate with their defense attorney. If it's the public and they have any questions about any of these protocols, they should contact the Mobile County Courthouse Court Administration number.
What about if you have depositions, mediations, or similar out-of-court appearances that you're, of course, working with your attorney, but what would you tell those people?
I would tell those people if it's in a civil trial, they would need to talk to their civil attorney. Now, if it's a criminal matter that's just a preliminary hearing or a traffic trial or anything like that, we are still conducting court hearings, but they are on a very limited basis. We have 2 district court judges that are in court every day instead of 4 that we had before COVID. So all of those proceedings that normally happen in district court, which is traffic court and preliminary hearings and trials on misdemeanors, are happening on a very small basis right now.
So do those need to be held in a face-to-face situation, or can you use the media videotaping and access?
If the person, the defendant, is on bond, then they must come to the courtroom themselves at their designated hearing time. But if the defendant is on bond, we are not transporting the defendants, if the defendant is in jail, we are not transporting the defendants that are in jail to the courthouse. We are doing that by Zoom. And so the court hearing is live, but it's by teleconferencing or Zoom, so that the defendants stay at Metro Jail and the lawyers and the judge and the parties to the proceedings are in the courtroom itself. And so all of our in-jail defendants are being handled by video conferencing.
Now, what if a business owner's business is shut down due to COVID-19 and otherwise cannot comply with a court requirement due to COVID-19? What should they do?
They should contact, if they're a victim, they should contact the district attorney's office, and we can try to let the court know and inform the court the reason why they are unable to attend court and try to get a reset. If it's a criminal defendant, then they need to contact their defense attorney, and their defense attorney will need to try and petition the court to have a continuance.
Now, if you need to file a lawsuit, should you wait for all this to be over, or
no? The courthouse is open to the public. Okay, we did not. The courthouse was shut down by our presiding judge until May 15th, and then May 15th he opened the courthouse back up to the public. So if you're a member of the public and you need to file a small claims suit, or a divorce action or anything like that, then the courthouse is open to do that. The courthouse is also open for those that owe fines, fees, fees and court costs as a result of a criminal action to come down and pay your fines, fees, and court costs. Also open to pay your child support that is due and payable to the court. So the courthouse is open for business to the public. So anything that you would normally have needed to come down to the courthouse for, you can do that now. You will have temperature checks. We have infrared temperature checks at the entrances to the courthouse, and you will be asked COVID questions.
And I guess one of the questions that everyone wants to know, how long do you think these restrictions will last for you? And is it likely that once the spread is contained that more localized restrictions will be adopted based on what you see your need is in Mobile?
You know, Eric, I am hopeful that we can go back to business in the full capacity that it was before COVID very soon, because the justice system is hurting as a result of all of the guidelines that are in place, and the fact that we cannot have, based on just there's no room in the courthouse to have all of the judges on at one time, and the sheer numbers of individuals coming up here due to the 6-foot social distancing requirements. But I'm very hopeful that we'll see the courthouse getting back to the capacity that it was before COVID very soon. I have to be hopeful, because if we don't get back to full capacity, it's only going to cause a further backlog in the justice system, and we certainly all do not want that nor need that, because eventually the judges will be letting the defendants out of jail, and I don't want that to happen.
And DA Rich, once again, you want to put a plea out to your potential jurors to answer and come on and be a part of what's taking place now based on the COVID-19 protocols.
I just want to make sure they understand that we have safety parameters in place, and I want them to feel comfortable in performing their civic duty of serving on jury duty.
District Attorney Ashley Rich, we thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing, giving us an update on what's taking place in our court system with the understanding of COVID-19 protocols. And again, we thank you very much for being a part of this.
Thank you very much.
Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich, again, we thank her for joining us this morning in Perspectives. It continues in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives, and of course we've been talking a lot this morning about the return of jury trials and how things have changed because of COVID-19. As District Attorney Ashley Rich pointed out, the courthouse is open for regular business, including paying court fines. Now, if you have any questions about jury selection or trials, you can check out the Mobile County District Attorney website at mobileda.org. Now, you can also call the phone number you see there on your screen as well at 251-574-8400. Now, next week, the numbers are extremely disturbing. More than 7 million cases of COVID-19 diagnosed in the United States since March alone. And sadly, in the last 6 months, more than 200,000 Americans have died because of the disease. In Mobile County, we've had more than 13,500 cases diagnosed and nearly 300 deaths. Our friends, family members, and folks who were making incredible contributions to our area. We have now social distanced, washed our hands thousands of times, and wore our mask. We have navigated through the spring and the hot days of summer. And yet the coronavirus is still with us. The virus continues to spike in Alabama and the U.S. as we head into the flu season. Now, next Saturday morning, we'll talk to 2 health experts from the Mobile County Health Department about their concerns for our community as we face COVID-19 still and the new upcoming influenza season. Well, join us here next Saturday morning for Perspectives as we discuss important issues and seek solutions. Now, if you have ideas of topics you'd like for us to address, just drop it to us at perspectives@fox10tv.com. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week.